Hi friends, welcome back to Extraordinary Connections. My name is Dillon Burns, I'm the pastor at Manchester United Methodist Church, and I'm so glad to be back for another of our daily devotionals, and today I'd like to talk about a mathematical principle you may not have heard of before, and how it can help us better name and describe God. Naming God is not an easy task. We get a glimpse of this early on in Scripture, in the story of Moses talking to God, experiencing God firsthand in the burning bush. God is telling Moses that he needs to go back into Egypt to rescue the Israelites and take them on to the promised land, and Moses is feeling a bit overwhelmed by the whole prospect, thinking about how the folks in Egypt might not welcome him, might not trust that he's come to save them. And so he says to God, "Tell me your name so that I can tell the Israelites when I go and explain all of what you've explained to me." And God answers with a Hebrew phrase that can be translated as "I am who I am," or "I will be who I will be," which is a recursive name, to say the least. It doesn't provide a whole lot of information. I am who I am, I will be who I will be. See, it's not so much a name as it is escaping a name. It's not so much a name as saying that God cannot be named, cannot be pinned down to a particular name, cannot be held within any of our descriptions or understandings. It is to say, as we might know already, that God is too big for us to comprehend, too much for us to contain into any particular description or name. It's a wonderful thing that makes naming and describing God incredibly difficult. How do you name something that cannot be named? There's a mathematical principle in the branch of statistics, which is the branch of math that's all about measuring things that cannot be directly measured. It's called the law of large numbers. The law of large numbers says that the more observations you make out of a particular sample, the more likely you are, on the average of the observations you've made, to be correct or close to correct if you were to make the observation across a whole population. I'm doing my best to describe this in ways that if a mathematician or statistician were watching, I wouldn't get in trouble for it. But I'm not necessarily a statistician or mathematician myself, so you'll have to forgive me if I got that definition just a little bit wrong. But here's basically how it works. If you are trying to get the average height of people in your town, this law says that if you measured two people and took the average between the two, you would likely not be as close to the true average height of folks in your town as if you went and measured 50 or 100 people and averaged all of their heights together. The more times that you try to get the right answer, the more likely you are to be close on the whole. And I think this same principle applies to naming God. If we cannot reach out and grab some single individual name or description that sums up all of who God is, then what we can do is we can try over and over again. Give God as many names and descriptions as we can, so that on the whole, we might get close to describing who God is. You'll note that this is what Scripture does as well. Scripture over and over again describes God in different ways. At times God is a father, and other times God is also a mother. One of my favorite descriptions, by the way, about God as mother is when Scripture describes God as a mother hen gathering her chicks under her wings. I think that's a beautiful description. Though God is not like a hen in some ways, it is insufficient. And so we can't have just that one description. We need many. I think this is incredibly important because sometimes we find a couple of descriptions that are particularly meaningful to us, and we want to whittle it all the way down to just those few or that one. But to do so very often can whittle down what we allow God to be. And I rather imagine God would like to be more than that. Incidentally, I believe this is even true for some of the most foundational descriptions for God. One of my most cherished, and perhaps one of yours as well, comes from 1 John describing how God is love. Friends, God is love. And yet at the same time, our understanding of what love is might be limited or deficient in some way. We cannot hold God back to just what we think love might or must be. For God is love, and God is also righteous and just and merciful and gentle, strong, mighty, powerful. God is so many things that we cannot cling to just one name, one description of God, but must instead welcome the multitude so that on the whole we might get close to the indescribable truth of who God is. Friends, what new descriptions and names might we give to God that get us closer to understanding the fullness of who God is? Thanks for being with me today. Have a blessed day.